Kyle, we're talking about Kamala Harris, anti-Catholic bigotry. And I was just mentioning the fact that her name, Kamala, that's comes from Indian Sanskrit. It's the name of a goddess in India, and her middle name is Diva. That's also Sanskrit. It's found from the Sanskrit literature, the Vedic literature, and it's also a deity. It means shining one. I don't know. It just kind of gives me the EBGBs, Kyle. The fact that she has names of pagan deities, but beyond that, she just got a history of anti-Catholic bigotry. She doesn't like the Knights of Columbus. She's on record as going after the Knights of Columbus. This one nomination, Brian Boucher, who's trying to serve as a district judge in Nebraska, she was posing a series of anti-Catholic questions, and these things are on record. She was asking him of the fact, if you become a judge, are you going to leave the Knights of Columbus? And also, she went after, when she was the Attorney General, a young man in California named David Daleiden. David Daleiden went into Planned Parenthood, did some great investigative reporting, and showed that Planned Parenthood was selling body parts illegally, obviously. And she's done everything but throw the kitchen sink at him. She's went after him civilly, tried to break his piggy bank. He's pretty much broke, and she's going after him criminally. This woman is evil. Kyle, what do you observe? Give me your observation on this woman.
Well, I think you're spot on. I think words mean things, and I think what we're seeing the diabolical mock, the whole democratic process, the whole republic, the government process. We're seeing an open mocking is what we're seeing. We're seeing a person who is not intellectually qualified to hold the last 6 offices that she's held. We're seeing a preference being given for a perceived minority. We're seeing preferences being given for agenda. We're seeing this straw person put forward. Politics modernly is not politics any more than WWF is wrestling. Everyone's playing this game. I mean, it's a form of sport. It's a form of entertainment. I would propose to you that even professional sports has such an entertainment component. We're much like ancient Rome. But the demon is just putting it in your face. Here's the issue that I really want to hear LifeSite News take up and any reputable Catholic sources. Here's the subject I want to hear them take up. We have Novus Ordo Modernist Church, Vatican II Church, that has said at least Joe Biden was Catholic. At least Nancy Pelosi is Catholic. Here is a pagan who is clearly anti-Catholic. How will you justify voting for the Democratic Party if you call yourself a Catholic? How are you going to do that now?
Good question. Wow. Yeah, that's going to cause, that question should cause cognitive dissonance in the mind of any Catholic who considers himself faithful to the church. Yep, that's a great question,
correct.
Kyle.
We did not have the church recommending public penance for those who voted for Obama. We did not have them recommending public penance for those who voted for Joe Biden. And for that reason, we've got abortion as they're trying to legislate it into things as a right. So we've got child sacrifice being demanded by our politicians and by the electorate. We've got pagan deities. Make no mistake, at the Republican National Convention, there was a prayer offered by a woman to a Hindu deity.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we got
Where did people stand up and walk out? Where were those people standing up and walking out? They weren't.
Yeah, you're right.
We're numb. We are numbed, and we're willing to put up with anything. And the way we got numbed was through ecumenicism, through the Second Vatican Council dumbing down Catholicism, dumbing down our faith, purposely, meticulously, and systematically diminishing the liturgy, diminishing our practice as Catholics to the point where someone can say, is it true you're a member of the Knights of Columbus? Traditional Catholics and members of the Knights of Columbus have been listed as domestic terrorists for the last 10 years, and that's not been addressed.
Wow. Kyle, last night I was doing some yard work, and I was listening to an old recording, very old recording, 30, 40 years ago, of a guy named Michael Davies who was warning us about all this infiltration. He sounded just like you. I said, boy, this could be Kyle Clement giving this lecture. Michael Davies was talking about false ecumenism, what is doing to the church. He was talking about this 40 years ago, the infiltration of the Masons, Archbishop Bonini. We have had good voices that have been warning us in the past, but it seems like the people at the highest echelons of the church just don't want to hear those sound voices.
They don't. The one world government bunch, the Luciferians, they do not want to hear it. But you got to call it out where you see it. It is, make no mistake about it, is Luciferianism. And this soft thing, they're not going to run a candidate named Lucifer Jones or Beelzebub Smith. They're not going to run those guys, but they're going to run a Kamala Davi Harris. And she's going to have so you see what I mean? It's by degrees, and the demon is going to militate until he's resisted against.
Wow. And what's interesting is, again, like you said, at the GOP conference, they had a Hindu prayer, obviously to their pagan deities. And now on the other side of the aisle, they have a woman who's got the name of two Hindu pagan deities, first and middle name. Very interesting. Again, this false ecumenism coming into politics as well.
The demon is mocking us. The demon is mocking us. Leadership, government leadership, all of this should be patriarchal. Very simply, it should be. St. Paul himself says it and doesn't mince any words about it. And so it should be patriarchal. So nobody considers this agent of the demon to be female, but his most effective agents have always been female.
Interesting. Very interesting. Put some meat on that response. Now you just left me hanging. That was a cliffhanger. So what do you mean by that last thing that you made? Develop that.
So what we're talking about is that Lilith spirit, that Jezebel spirit. You look back into the truly evil queen mothers who manipulated and worked either through husbands or through straw men. And now we're at a position of modernism where that facade is no longer needed. Straw man's not needed. She acts on her own, totally outside the scope. And here is a person who is created. Women are created to nurture, to bring forth life. And one of her key issues is the taking of life, to be the executor, the arbiter.
Yes.
And so this is as close as she's going to get to being the author of creation. And that's ultimately a Luciferian concept.
Kyle, there's a whole host of very wicked, feminine creatures in the Bible. In the Bible, in the Old Testament, you got, female fertility deities. You have witches, necromancers. You have evil seductresses that are always trying to pull the Israelites away from God. In the Old Testament, you got evil figures such as Lilith, like you mentioned, Astaroth, Jezebel, Delilah, the witch of Endor, and others. And, in the New Testament, you got Herodias and her daughter Salome. You got Pythonissa, the soothsayer in the book of Acts of the Apostles. You got Jezebel, the whore of Babylon. And again, I'm starting to see this radical feminist movement. These women are taking positions of absolute power, which are patriarchal positions. And they're coming in with an agenda, not of life, like the Blessed Virgin Mary, fiat be it done to me according to thy will, and, accepting human life. No, they're coming in with an agenda of death. These powerful women, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris and AOC and many others. These people, to me, they're psychologically compatible with some type of feminine demon.
Precisely. You're seeing the garden. You're seeing the Garden of Eden on a global scale.
Yeah. Now, give me your short definition of the deep state. Tell me if you're tracking with me. For me, the deep state, it's a shadow, unelected government that really manipulates the temporal elected government. The temporal elected government is beholden to this shadow unelected government, which is Luciferian. Am I tracking with you?
Well, you're precisely right. You are precisely right. So what has to happen is, first of all, in this progression, the sacredness of a particular office has to be shattered. That is essentially done by at Watergate with Nixon, and one of the chief counsels, a feminist, a loud, vocal feminist, highly ambitious, willing to do anything, attorney, was Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Oh.
You see, you got to remember where her face first becomes public. And so there is a group that has always been, it goes all the way back to the worship of the golden calf. They come out of Egypt. They're with the Hebrews, and it's the weeds and the tares, and they've grown up with us all along. But this group that wanted to, with the arrogance, they wanted to rule, they wanted to govern, so that Christ is not sovereign. And so they militate against providence. They militate and try to curb and work providence. The thing is, they end up being the instruments of providence. But that's where Hillary Rodham Clinton comes online. Then she picks and woos and courts and seduces Bill Clinton. She knew exactly what was happening. And here is a guy who is, his appetites, his exteriors are totally out of control. There's no moderation whatsoever. And so when it's his turn, when it's his turn to gain the presidency, then he does irreparable damage to the office. So it's been like the felling of a mighty oak tree, and we see lick after lick after lick. But